Asmad Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmad Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So we're continuing discussing Hari Bhakti Vilas, and last time we was discussing about the different upacharas, or the different services offered to the deity, and we got different lists of 16, 10, 5, and even 64 upacharas or services that we can offer to the deity. So now we'll pick it up at that point. So here we are. I believe we are in the 11th Vilas. Yep. Text 144 to 147. So we just previously we had just finished giving lists of upacharas and services that we can perform for the deity, but also saying that all devotees should regularly worship the Supreme Lord, if possible daily. And of course, join into with great festivals of service that we do on Janmashtami and other holy days. We're going to be talking later on in Hari Bhakti Vilas of other holy days like Janmashtami and days throughout the year where we perform special services to the Lord. And then, of course, each according to our different traditions and our different sampradayas or different sects of groups in sampradayas, they may have different ingredients and different ways of offering these services to the Lord, which are traditional. And this is called Shistachara, following in the footsteps of the previous acharyas or the previous Vaishnavas. And also that what to do when we can't get certain items in certain places or certain times and circumstances, those ingredients or items which are usually collected during the day, during Upadana stage. We have Abhigamana, Upadana, Ija, Svadhyaya, and Yoga as the 5 stages of a Vaishnava's day. So in the Upadana stage of collecting the ingredients for doing the worship of the Lord, if we can't get certain ingredients for any reason, what will be the substitutes for doing that? So we can talk about that. The next section is going to be proper utilization of those ingredients. So let's continue on. So this is a quote. These are quotes, text 144 to 147 are quotes coming from the Tantras about utilization of different ingredients. In Sanskrit, we usually call ingredients for worship as samagris, the word samagri. So this is a description of how the ingredients of worship should be collected. If an ingredient is not available, one can make a facsimile of it by using flour, paddy, a rice paddy, or barley, right? So it could be rice flour or ordinary wheat flour, or some sort of flour or barley or rice. The rice paddy, I'm not exactly sure paddy usually refers to rice which is unhusked with the husk on it. I'm not exactly sure how you do that. But for example, what springs to mind when talking about this is that in some traditions, like in Madhva Dvaita Vedanta, they have the idea that you can perform these certain sacrifices in the Vedas, which involve the offering of animals into the fire with an animal made out of flour. Also, another thing that we've seen in more recently in temples, and it's traditional, is to make a certain thing called a pistadeep. A pistadeep is where you get rice flour, or you can get some other sort of flour, and you make a type of dough, and then you make a depression in the dough and fill it with oil or ghee, and have a wick there, and offer that as a lamp. Make a lamp out of that dough made of flour. So these are the things that spring to mind when we talk about using rice flour or flour, rice paddy or barley as a substitute for an ingredient. Because it may sound a little strange if you don't have some context to understand why you would use flour but if you don't, for instance, if you don't have a lamp, if you don't have a brass or silver lamp or a copper lamp, then you could easily make one out of this rice flour dough. Or if you don't have an animal that you can offer into the fire in a Vedic Shravaka ceremony, then you make an animal out of flour. Especially this is good because you don't have to kill an animal. And in Kali Yuga, some of these sacrifices are forbidden actually, because there's a verse, there's a sloka in the scriptures that says Gomeda Ashrameda Va, right, or Cha. That in Kali Yuga there are 5 things which are actually forbidden. One of them is the Gomeda, which is the cow sacrifice. Ashrameda is a horse sacrifice. That's the second one. The taking of sannyas, believe it or not, is something which is forbidden in Kali Yuga. But we don't want to talk about that in detail because of course people still take sannyas, but there are different rules for different types of sannyas, so we won't get into that right here. But there's a prohibition on sannyas. Another prohibition is begetting a child in your brother-in-law's wife's womb. This is called leveret in the Bible. But in case a lady's husband dies without giving her a child, then the possibility existed in other ages for the brother-in-law of that lady who's now a widow, to impregnate the lady and to give her a child. So that's a possibility, but not in Kali Yuga. It's not acceptable in Kali Yuga. So this is the fourth thing, right? So we talked about sannyas, gomeda, ashmeda, and the fifth thing is the offering of meat. The fifth thing is the offering of meat to the forefathers in the Shraddha ceremony. So Shraddha ceremonies, when we perform a Shraddha ceremony for the ancestors, then we offer a big meal to Brahmins who are representing the different forefathers, Lord Vishnu, and the Vaishva Devas, all of the Devas. So you have 3 Brahmins in a Shraddha. One represents Vishnu, one represents all of the other Devas, and one represents the Pitris, the forefathers. So there are some padatis that talk about offering of meat offerings to the forefathers in Shraddhas. So that is also, of course, forbidden in Kali Yuga. So these are the 5 things which are forbidden in Kali Yuga. So naturally, if we are performing a Shraddha ceremony, which a Shraddha sacrifice, a Vedic sacrifice, not a Smarta sacrifice to do with Shmiti, but actually to do with the Shraddha or the original Vedas, which are very rare these days. Sometimes we have these animal sacrifices, and we can use an animal shaped out of barley or rice flour, like that, pista, like the pista beaters. So anyway, that's what came to mind when we started talking about that. One may also substitute water for any unavailable ingredient. This is a very, very useful rule. So I think everybody should know this pramanam, like that. We can look through and we can see exactly where water is mentioned. Urakenaiva. Urakenaiva means water, with water. So, for instance, if I have to offer madhuparka, I have to offer a drink which has got honey and ghee and a little bit of ghee and yogurt and milk, like that. I don't have the milk. I don't have the honey. I don't have any of these items like that. But I want to do the worship to the Lord. I'm traveling and I can't get all those things, or those things are just unavailable to me. Then I can use ordinary water, and I can meditate upon that water being equal to the madhuparka, and I can offer like that. So even if we use ordinary water, sometimes when we do the patra parikalpanam, this is called patra parikalpanam, where we establish the different vessels for the worship, the external worship of the deity. So we'll add to the water of these vessels different spices and different things for different types of water, argya, padya, achmaniya, shnana, and sudodaka. So we'll offer different things. If we don't have those things, then we can simply offer the water, or maybe put a tulsi leaf in the water and just meditate upon the spices, different spices being there. So water as a substitute. So for any liquid that we need to offer to the Lord, right? Any liquid, either bathing or offering in these different vessels, we can substitute water. Even for some other things, if we don't have flowers, whatever it is like that, if we simply just offer some water, and throw it in the Visarjini, in the throw-out pot, then we can meditate that we are using water as a substitute. So water is a very common substitute for anything. We can also offer akshata, which is rice, whole rice grains, which have been colored with turmeric or kumkum, like that. This is also considered to be a very good substitute. That hasn't been mentioned here yet, but we have one may substitute water with any unavailable ingredient. If an ingredient is extremely rare, then a learned person should meditate upon it within his mind and then offer it to the Lord in the form of a flower. So if your puja procedure calls for offering diamonds to the Lord and you don't have a diamond, or you don't have some very rare object like that, you can take a flower and meditate that the flower is the diamond and offer the flower. Okay. So one should give up all miserliness while collecting ingredients for worship. He should mentally offer those ingredients which are not available in the market, or not available to buy or to gather, or to make oneself. So of course, flowers that are grown in our own gardens are better. We can also, with permission, we can take flowers from other persons who are growing them in their gardens. Of course, the other person who donates flowers to you for your worship, he also is going to he's going to get half the benefit of the worship that you perform, or maybe even the whole benefit, and you only receive half the benefit. And worst comes to worst, we can go to the market and we can go to the flower store and buy tulsi and flowers. Just like in Srirangam or any big outside any big temple in India, if you go, there'll be stalls that will provide the pilgrims, the people who are coming, the Vaishnavas who are coming to the temple, with all sorts of items, fruits and coconuts and bananas and tulsi and flowers and so many things, and incense, anything that would be offerable to the Lord, which they can buy and they can take inside and offer to the deity. So when we buy these items, they become purified in a certain way by us compensating the salesman with some money. But whatever we can't find, we can mentally offer to the Lord. We can offer mentally to the Lord, because mental worship is actually the essence. The essence of deity worship is the mentality, is our meditation upon worshiping the Lord. That's the more important thing, is the internal worship, the meditational worship. And the external worship, if we can arrange for, beautiful flowers and beautiful dresses and beautiful and all these different rare items to be offered to the Lord, externally, then that's good. If we can't, we can simply meditate upon them. So this is a very important pramana to understand, that we shouldn't be frustrated and think that, I can't obtain this diamond or this rare thing, or even this common thing like a spice, so I can't do worship because I'm restricted like that. But the important thing in the pramana also says that you should not be miserly in collecting the ingredients for worship. So if the ingredients are available to you in your own garden, or a donation from some other person's garden, or you can go to the market and you can buy them, then you should go and do those things. You should collect those external. Everything is owned and controlled by the Lord. In the Upanishads, he says, "Isavasyamiram sarvam yat kincha jagatam jagate tena chaktena buddhita madgudakasya suddhana." This is Upanishad 1. So he says everything is owned and controlled by him. Right? Everything is owned and controlled by him. So he owns everything. So in a sense, nothing is lacking and everything is there. Nothing is ours. But still, we like to go and we like to try to purchase or collect those ingredients for worship and offer them back to the Lord. Okay, so that's nice. So we shouldn't think, I can offer this thing by water or by a flower, so why would I go to the shop and buy it? No, if you can do it, you should go and buy it like that, bring it. But if you can't do it, if it ultimately cannot be obtained, then you can do it by meditation. That's the point. So text 148. So from the Augusta Samhita, and we remember the Augusta Samhita is mostly about the worship of Lord Rama. In the Tulsi Mahatmya section, so there's a section that glorifies the worship or just glorifies Tulsi in general, the Tulsi worship and Tulsi use of Tulsi. It says, O Lord Ramachandra, if anything desirable is offered, if anything desirable to be offered is unavailable, in the course of worshipping the Supreme Lord, one can simply substitute a tulsi leaf. One can simply substitute a tulsi leaf. So next, in text 149, there's a conversation between the Lord and Uddhava, which was found in the 11th canto, 27th chapter of verse 15 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's actually, that whole chapter is entitled Lord Krishna's Instructions on Deity Worship, chapter 27 of the 11th canto. So this is very useful. So here's another statement here. One should worship me in my deity forms by offering the most excellent paraphernalia. But a devotee completely freed from material desire may worship me with whatever he is able to obtain, and may even worship me within his heart with mental paraphernalia. This is a very nice, very, very nice pramanam, very, very nice thing. So what he's saying is that you can worship the Lord within the heart, and you don't even have to have an external deity. You can just simply do manasika worship like that. And of course, there are many devotees who have done like this. And even if they are doing external worship, they might be doing it very simply. What springs to mind is in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given a Govardhan Shila, his own Govardhan Shila, his own stone from the Govardhan hill, to Raghunath Das Goswami, and instructed him to worship this Shila. And as a Goswami, he has very little, right? He's a renunciate. So he's told him just with pure water and 8 tulsi manjaris. Tulsi manjari is the when we pick tulsi, we try to pick two leaves, and also the seed packets. The part of the tulsi that makes the seeds is called the manjari. So we take the manjari along with 2 tulsi leaves, and that's called the manjari, tulsi manjari, and take it. So if we have 8 of those and we have some water, that's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told Raghunath Das Goswami, this is enough to offer worship, your full worship to the Lord in the form of Govardhan Shila. So very nice. So we can. So
do you have any details why 8 manjaris? How is the technicality around?
Why 8? Why 8? That's a very good question. I don't know that we have an actual prayoga or an actual procedure that Raghunath Das followed. We know the procedure that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to do himself was very spontaneous. It was not really according to the rules and regulations of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. It was more of a thing, his feeling, bhava, like a Raghunuga Bhakti. So he would sometimes place the stone on his head, sometimes press it to his eyes. Sometimes he would bathe the stone by his tears, with his tears of joy, of tears of love and tears of joy, like that. So these are the ways in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was worshipping his Govardhan Shila. So now for the rest of us, for people who don't, I'm just speak for myself, a person who can't say that he has any real love for God. We're not on that platform of bhava or prema where we can bathe our shalagrams or our Govardhan Shilas with our tears of love, because we have no tears of love. So for us, we're more following the rules and regulations of Vaidhi Bhakti, and Hari Bhakti Vilasa is full of that. But Hari Bhakti Vilasa does also mention, these feelings that Vaishnavas can have and how they can follow their feelings. We see in the Ramayana, for instance, one lady was offering Rama the skin of a fruit rather than the fruit. Or for instance, we have examples of great Vaishnavas, they'll taste the fruit before they offer it to the Lord, because they don't want to offer the Lord a bitter fruit. They want to make sure the fruit is very sweet before offering it to the Lord. So there are many things that may be done by pure devotees. Here we have a devotee who's completely freed from material desire. So more or less what Lord Krishna is saying here in the Bhagavatam is that if you are an advanced devotee, if you are a very advanced devotee, then I'll pretty much accept whatever you want to offer me, however you want to offer it to me. And he says this also in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, Patram pushpam palam toyam yome bhaktya prayatiti. Please offer to me a fruit, a flower, a leaf, and some water. But in the other half of the verse, it gives the also what Krishna really wants is the love and devotion. So here's tadaham bhakti upahrityam ashtami prayatat manaha. So he says that with the bhakti is what is important. So the devotion is important. So please offer to me a fruit, a flower, a leaf, and some water with bhakti, but not without bhakti. So the bhakti is the important thing. The bhakti is always has to be there. The devotion always has to be there, whether we're offering something within the mind or with a substitute or with the original, physical external item that is mentioned in scripture, a particular flower or a particular fruit or whatever, whether we're actually able to obtain that thing or not. What's really, really important is the attitude that we have when we offer it to the Lord. That attitude should be a loving, devotional attitude of bhakti. Okay, so I think this is these are all very, very nice pramanas here, very, very nice proofs from the scripture. So continuing on, says, thereafter one should take permission from the Lord, offer obeisances to him, and have a meal that is appropriate for the night. After eating, one should retire for the night while remembering the Supreme Lord. And many people, they meditate on the Lord when they're going to sleep, and they think about actually keeping their head on the Lord's feet as a pillow, like that while they're sleeping. So here he's finished off talking about, seems to have finished off talking about the different ingredients and substitute ingredients and how we can do mental worship if we don't have certain ingredients. And what Gopal Bhatta and Sanatana Goswami is saying here is that after that, we should take permission from the Lord and offer obeisances to him. And then, obviously, before we go and we take our meal, we're going to put the Lord to sleep. We're going to put him to sleep, and then we're going to have our evening meal, and then we're going to, which is appropriate. Maybe it's not a very big meal. It's they say an appropriate meal. So Sayan Bhuktva is what is said in the text here. Sayan Bhuktva means the evening meal. So evening meal is usually a smaller meal so that we can sleep properly. We don't want to have a very heavy or big meal. And that whatever's appropriate. Then after that evening, then we can lie down and we can take rest. So continuing on, text 151 to 153, the process of putting the Lord to rest. Now, that's what one thing about Hari Bhakti Vilasa is not everything comes in exactly the order that it has to be performed. It's step-by-step cookbook. It's not a prayoga. It is not in that form. It has different pramanas, different shastric instructions to tell us what to do, but not necessarily in exactly the order that they have to be done. So up here, where although it says in the previous sloka that we should take the meal, we should take permission from the Lord, pay obeisances to him, and take meal like that, and then take rest. After we take rest, after he said we're going to take rest, now he's saying, well, we're going to give you the process of putting the Lord to rest. Obviously, we have to be awake to do that, right? We're not going to take rest and then in our mind, somehow in our dreams, hope that we put the Lord to rest. We have to, first of all, as servants of the Lord, put the Lord to rest. So we have to do this also before we take the meal, before we get ready for bed and take rest. So that's just to be understood, that don't get confused that there's it seems like it's a little bit out of order here. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Atah. Again, it's starting a new section. We talked about the ingredients. Now we're going to talk about the upacharas of the services. Now we're going to talk about the process of putting the Lord to rest. So in the Agamas, there's some quotes here. It says here, before going to bed, one should pray, my Lord Madhava, who is adorned with jewels that are kept on the hoods of Ananta as he lies in the ocean of milk, who is beginningless, who is unlimited, who is uncontaminated, who is inexhaustible, who assumes the universal form, and who lies on the bed of Ananta, always protect me. Right. So he's praying to the Lord, the Supreme Lord, called as Madhava, who is lying down, who is sleeping on the bed Ananta Shesha, right, the divine serpent of time, right? Lying down in the ocean of milk in a place called Svetavlik, which is called White Island because of the waves of milk lapping up on the shores. May the omnipotent Lord, Supreme Lord, who is the life and soul of all living entities, and who rides on a chariot decorated with a flag of Garuda, protect my entire body, both internally and externally. So here we're actually, this is a prayer. This is more or less, it's interesting. This is not what I expected, some procedure for putting the Lord to bed, but it's a procedure for praying to the Lord before we go to bed. Okay. So we think of the Lord who's on a chariot with his flag of Garuda. Garuda, of course, is the carrier. That's the Garuda Mudra. There's another way to do Garuda Mudra underneath, like that. So Garuda is the Pakshi Raj, the king of eagles or Pakshis, and he's the carrier of Lord Vishnu. So we're thinking here about, before we go to bed, not only Lord, the Supreme Lord, but also his most intimate servants, Anantashesha, who becomes his bed, and Garuda, who is on his flag or who is his carrier. So may that Garuda protect my entire body internally and externally. While the Lord sleeps, let his devotees like Garuda protect me. But the Supreme Lord, well, we're praying to the Lord. We're just saying he's the Lord who rides on a chariot with a Garuda flag. So it's the Lord we want to protect us, not Garuda. But we think of Garuda also at the same time. So while chanting, because he's associated with the Lord, while chanting mantras such as this and while remembering Lord Vishnu, one should go to bed. Okay. So then text 154. Elsewhere it is stated, so we don't know where this quote is coming from, after using the toilet and washing his hands, mouth, and feet, right? Hands, feet, and mouth, right? Some people have a specific order for washing the hands. So usually we wash the feet first, then afterwards wash the hands, because if you wash the hands first, then you have to wash the feet. You have to use the hands to wash the feet, because there's a I think it's in Manu Samhita or something. In the Dharma Shastra somewhere it says you should not wash one foot with the other foot. Some people do this. They pour water on the feet and then they rub one foot on the other foot while they're pouring water on it. But actually, this is supposedly not to be done. So you're actually supposed to wash the feet with your hands, right? So after you wash your feet with your hands, then you have to wash your hands because you've touched your feet. So then after you've washed your feet, then you wash your hands and then you wash your mouth. So it says here, hands, feet, and mouth. But actually, I would say it's feet, hands, and mouth, right, in that order. But, some people may have some disagreement with that and they may have some other order. They may say, first of all, you wash your mouth by doing Achmana, then you wash your hands, and lastly, wash your feet. If you don't have to touch your feet, you can do it that way also. So anyway, the exact order and the exact method may be different according to different sampradayas and different groups. So then, excuse me. Then one should go to bed immediately after wiping the Lord's lotus feet with a cloth while meditating on Sri Krishna, that Sri Krishna, the Lord of the universe, Lord of Raja, the Lord of the cowherd boys, is relishing the nectarian words of Srimati Radharani. Okay, so now, it is possible to interpret this whole section as follows. It is possible that we go back here and we interpret that we are taking permission from the Lord after offering services to him. We're offering obeisances to him. We're going and we're taking our meal, right? And then we're coming back and we're putting the Lord to bed after that, before we take rest. It's possible to say that. In that case, normally the cloth is changed. You would have to change your cloth because you would either change out of your the clean cloth that you're using and wear some other cloth for taking your meal. But usually cloth, unless it's wool or silk, sometimes silk, but people say silk, but mostly wool, or unless it's a separate cloth, will become contaminated when we're eating the food, because normally we're sitting and we're eating the food and some food may drop on the cloth. In any case, we normally change our cloth that we've eaten in, or we've done other things in, right? Gone to the bathroom or whatever it is. Anyway, so it's possible to interpret this that you go and you eat, you change your cloth, you come back, you wash your hands, mouth, and feet, you pray for the Lord to protect you, you wash your hands, mouth, and feet in whatever order your particular ancestors have taught you to do it, or your group does it. One should then go to bed. Then one wipes the feet of the Lord. Now, the feet of the Lord have got chandan on them, sandalwood paste and tulsi leaves and things. They are wiped with a damp cloth to get those removed. Then after we wipe them, of course, normally we again put sandalwood paste and tulsi on fresh before he takes rest. Okay, that's not necessarily mentioned here, but it says here, wiping the Lord's lotus feet with cloth while meditating on Sri Krishna and thinking that Krishna is taking rest. Also, if we have small deities, we can take those deities and place them even within a bed. We can offer some hot milk to them and some pan, some spices, and there are some mantras to be chanted to pray to the Lord to take rest. But we should be thinking of the Supreme Lord, being Krishna, surrounded by all his friends in Braja, and here he's also hearing the nectarine words of Srimati Radharani. So let's continue on. So text 155, it says, one who remembers Lord Ramachandra, Kartikeya, Hanuman, Kartikeya is Skanda, here in the spoken of Ramam Skandam, Hanumantam. Garuda, Vrikodara, while going to bed every day, will not have any bad dreams. Vrikodara, Vrika Udara. I believe Bhima is Vrikodara. Bhima is one of the 5 Pandavas. He is called Vrikodara. Vrikodara means wolf belly. Wolf belly. Udara means belly, and Vrika means wolf. Okay, so if we remember Ramachandra, Skanda, Hanuman, Garuda, Vrikodara, you will not have bad dreams. That's a nice pramana there. Hopefully devotees only have auspicious dreams. Sometimes if we have, in some ceremonies, which involve more than one day, if a person has a bad dream, then prayaschitta has to be done, expiation of different offerings into the fire. For instance, in the Chakrabja Mandala Diksha in Padma Samhita, if the person taking initiation has bad dreams, they have to be alleviated by some prayaschitta homas. And then in other cases, if we have good dreams, if we have auspicious dreams, these are also considered good omens, nimitta karana. So and also sometimes very auspicious things can happen in dreams like that. Whether it's good or bad, whether you have a dream which is good or bad, like that, a dream should be kept private, except for somebody who's very close to you, like the spiritual master. You can go and you can reveal the dreams that you've had and take advice from him about those dreams. Otherwise, of course, between husband and wife or some very close, intimate relations, we can share our dreams. But normally, Vaishnavas, they don't share their dreams with everybody. Unless it's a very auspicious dream where the Lord comes or the spiritual master comes in the dream and says something auspicious to you or gives some instruction. Or unless you're commanded to share the dream in the dream itself, then of course you can share the dream. But normally the dreams are kept private. Okay, so anyway, enough about dreams. 156 to 158 in the Skanda and Padma Puranas, it's also stated. So here we have, it's interesting because it quotes from both Skanda and Padma Purana. So it says these same verses are in both Puranas. So it means that they're important verses. So here it says, a householder who enjoys sex with his wife only during the prescribed time after menstruation and is attached to his wife and no other woman is to be considered as a brahmachari. Okay, so different definitions of brahmacharis. Because why is this coming up here? Why is this sections mentioning this? Okay, number one, Hari Bhakti Vilasa is mostly for grihastas. right? Mostly for householders, people who are married, means husband and wife and family. So number 2, we are in a section where we're talking about the evening after we put the Lord to rest and after we take rest in the night. So normally sexual activity occurs at night. Sexual activity that occurs at other parts of the day and or whatever other times, right, is actually prohibited in the scriptures. Is prohibited by certain rules in the scriptures, in the Dharma Shastras and the Smriti Shastras. So normally the normal time for sexual activity is at night. So that's why it comes in this particular section of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. Okay, so now
just one question. Are we still speaking about worshipping temple deity also in these all instances?
No, Hari Bhakti Vilasa doesn't really make a huge distinction between worship of the temple deity or worship of the home deity. I mean, he's just talking about worshiping Krishna. But obviously some worship goes on in the temple and some worship goes on in the house. But whether you're worshiping, you have to put before you go to bed, you have to put your home deities to sleep. Before you go to bed, you have to put the temple deities to sleep. I mean, it makes sense. Either way, you have to put the Lord to sleep before you take rest. And at the time of taking rest, now we're coming to a point where we're talking about enjoying sex life with husband and wife. So that's why it's talking about that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not quite sure what difference it makes, whether it's a temple or whether it's a house. Does it make any difference? There are householders worshiping in the temple. There are householders worshiping in the house also, right? Mm-hmm. According to Pancharatra, in the Pancharatra Shastras, the main Pancharatra priests are grihastas. In fact, you may see occasionally, you see people who are brahmacharis and sannyasis who are performing Pancharatra worship in temples, but mostly sannyasis are not supposed to do it. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says, "Sannyasi cha yogi cha naniragnina chakya." So a sannyasi is specifically forbidden to perform certain fire rituals. So sannyasi to yogi naniragniya. So sannyasis and yogis. What do we mean by yogis? We more or less mean sadhus, people who are some saintly person who has sort of devoted their life 100% to God. That person doesn't normally have these duties that the grihasta has. Now, in a Varnashram society, which is based on the Smriti Shastras mostly, but of course there was Varnashram even before the Smriti Shastras were written. Normally in the Smriti Shastras it talks about the main person who has the most duties to perform. The main ashram that has the most duties to perform is the grihasta. Brahmacharis have to concentrate on study, so they also have a fire ceremony they do morning and evening called Samhidadanam. But the grihasta has more than that. He has many, many duties. He has the Panchamahayagya to perform. He has, which is the 5 different ways that we get rid of the debts we are born with just by taking birth in this material body. He also has to do morning and evening upasana and Agnihotra also. I mean, mostly today, people don't do any of these things, but if they do them, some people do upasanam, homa, morning and evening with grihastas. If they're very, very much Vaidika, and they're into Vaidika karmas, then they'll do Agnihotra. But most people don't do both, but it seems like the scriptures prescribe both. I may be wrong about that, but it seems like the scriptures, both the smarta, upasana, and the shrauta, Agnihotram has to be done morning and evening by grihasta. Then he has, just like any Brahmin or any Trivarnicus, he has to do Sandhyavandana, he has to do Brahma Yajna, he has to do, as I said before, eating, he has to do Vaishvadeva, which is part of the Panchamahayagnas. So there are many, many duties for the Trivarnicus, especially for the Brahmins, not so much for the Kshatriyas and the Vaishyas, but especially for the Brahmins. Throughout the day, they have many, many things to do. And then so the worship that happens, especially the male Brahmins are doing the worship in the temple. And in Pancharatra, the Pancharatric priest actually doesn't have a right to be a Pancharatric acharya or priest or something like that if he's not married. It's sort of similar to the Eastern Orthodox Christianity. They have priests that must be married, whereas the Roman Catholics, the priest must be celibate. They must be unmarried. So in Pancharatra, the priests are all supposed to be married. So the priest in the temple is supposed to be a married man. Normally he's a married man like that. Although Pancharatra, the system of Pancharatra is open to all castes and all ashramas, all varnas and all ashramas. At the same time, generally in India, we see married men are the temple priests. At the same time, in Vaishnavism, all persons have a right to worship God. And this is part of the Panchasamskara. So the initiation into Pancharatra that every man, woman, and child takes, right, who is a Vaishnava, takes a type of Vaishnava initiation. That Vaishnava initiation is called Panchasamskara. It has 5 aspects to it. Tapa, Pundra, Tuto, Nama, Mantra, Yaga, Panchabaha. These are the 5 things. Tapa, Pundra, Nama, Mantra, and Yaga. So Yaga itself is learning to worship the Lord. So even the ladies, and we saw this in the 5th Vilasa also, it was mentioned that Sudras, people who are not Trivarnicus, people who are in the Shudra class, the working class, right, in Varnashram society, if they are Vaishnavas, they can also worship the Lord directly, including the Shalagam Shila. It was mentioned specifically by the Goswamis there in the fifth Vilasa. And ladies also can worship the Shalagam Shila there. It was mentioned. Although the Goswamis there, they point to a couple of places in the scriptures where this is decried. There's some statements in the scriptures where the Lord says, "Oh, I feel the touch of a Sudra or a woman." Talking about the Shalagam, the Lord in the form of the Shalagam. I feel the touch of a Shudra or a woman to be like a thunderbolt. I don't want that. But then the Goswamis explain that, yes, an ordinary woman or an ordinary worker, an ordinary Sudra, if they touch the Shalagam, that is bad. But a person who becomes a Vaishnava by the process of Vaishnava Samskara or Vaishnava Diksha, that Pancha Samskara that I was talking about, Tapa Pulya Nama Mantra Yagasta Panchamaha, that person is specifically taught to worship the deity. So if we go through that purificatory ceremony of Vaishnava Diksha and we become purified enough that we purify the body with the symbols of Vishnu or Tulsi beads or whatever it is, Tapa Pundra, we wear the holy markings of the Udva Pundram Tilak on the body, in 12 places on the upper body. Tapa Pundra Tato Nama, we take a name as a servant of the Lord, Keshavadasa or Krishnadasa or whatever it is. And then we get the holy mantra, which is the essence, which is the Lord in sonic form, right, given to us, which in this case in Hari Bhakti Vilasa is the 18-syllable Gopal mantra, Kim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha, which contains with it the essence of all the Vaishnava philosophy, and it gives us an understanding of the Lord. Of course, we can't fully understand it, but it gives us a full understanding, somewhat understanding of the Lord. And then yaga, with all of this purification and the giving of the mantra, we are then taught how to worship the Lord. So, as it says in the beginning of the 3rd Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, one who takes that initiation and then doesn't worship the Lord, that is a waste. That's a complete waste. Why take initiation if you're not going to worship the Lord? Why get that mantra? Why become purified like that if you're not going to engage in the service of the Lord? No, you have to engage in Navada Bhakti, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyamatma, Nivedam. All of these things. So Archanam is included. These are all different aspects of Bhakti. So Archanam is included. So every Vaishnava has the responsibility to perform Archanam, to worship the Lord, because that is the raison d'etre, that is the actual meaning of taking initiation. Why will I take initiation? Not to worship the Lord? There's no need to take initiation. If I'm not going to worship the Lord, why take initiation? Even some people think about it like that today, and there are some Gaudiya Vaishnavas who think like that, and they think, oh, I would just chant Harinam like that. I won't take this initiation into this Vaishnava Diksha, into this mantra, because then that involves worship of the deity and all these things like that. But actually, the scriptures say you should do it. The Lord says you should do it. And the Goswamis here say, even if somebody's born a woman or born a Satsudra, born in a Sudra low working class background, working class, then they should also do it like that. So everybody, according to Pancharatra on one side, according to Pancharatra and according to Hari Bhakti Vilasa and according to Vaishnavism in general, everybody has the responsibility to worship the Lord and has in actual fact, the way it works out is that people have different roles to play in that worship. And traditionally, it's mostly the male grihastas who are worshiping in the temple and at home even, right? And everybody else in the family is observing the worship and is taking their part in the worship or preparing the food for the offering. The wife can be preparing the food for the offering. The children can be picking flowers and getting ingredients, whatever it is. Okay, we all have a part to play. So when we read through this, sometimes we think there's only one person here, right? There's only one person. That person is going and picking the flowers and making the offering, cutting and cooking the food and then offering it to the... No, in the household, of course, in the household worship, there's the whole family is involved with that. So does that answer the question a little bit? Because we don't know here. It's not making a big distinction. In Gaudiya Vaishnavism, there isn't a big distinction. In North India in general, any Brahmin, any person who's a Trivarnika, or any person who's a Vaishnava can do puja. You might go to a temple in North India and you might find a person, if it's a village temple, maybe the person's not even a Brahmin, he's not even, but he or she, and they're just tending to a small shrine of the Lord, and they're worshiping the Lord. But because they're Vaishnavas, they're able to do that because they're purified and they have the mantra and they are taught to worship the Lord in a certain way. According to Pancharatra, everybody can do that. So, but there might be some class distinctions when it comes to performing fire ceremonies and doing these other things. If those fire ceremonies are according to Shmiti or according to Shrauta, the Smarta or Shrauta sacrifices, there might be some other regulations. A sannyasi is not supposed to do a marriage ceremony. He's not supposed to do any fire ceremony. Because in the Gita it says, Nanir Agnir, he's not supposed to touch fire. However, a sannyasi, maybe a sannyasi has to give initiation to somebody, and maybe he has to do that type of fire where he heats the brands and brands the body with the symbols of Vishnu. He performs the fire ceremony. Given in the second Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa talks about initiation, and part of initiation is necessarily part of that pancha samskara. The externals are, bathing the disciple, having the fire ceremony. These are all external things. So if a sannyasi, if I say no sannyasi can perform any fire, then how can he be a guru? How can he be a Vaishnava guru? He can be. The fact is that traditionally, of course, even the gurus were grihastas. They were grihasta men, normally. When you say the brahmachari gurukula, brahmachari is supposed to go to the gurukula. The word kula means family. It doesn't mean that he goes off to seek a sannyasi teacher. A brahmachari goes and joins the family of a Brahmin teacher, and he lives in the house of the guru with the guru and the guru's wife and the guru's children. It's a family. Gurukula means the family of the guru. So you go and you live. It's like boarding with another family. Exchange student. He comes and he stays for some time and then he goes back. That's the system, like that. So nowadays we think of, there's these huge institutions, and the boys go and then they it's like a boarding school and they're there and there's a sannyasi who's in charge of it and he's the guru. But that's not the original Vedic system. So the original Vedic system is there were Brahmins who were knowledgeable in certain things, and boys would come bearing what is it called? Samit Pani, Stotrium. In the Vedas it says you should approach the guru with sticks in your hand to put in the fire, because he maintains the sacrificial fire in his house. And so that Brahmin who's maintaining the sacrificial fire in his house, you can learn from him. But you go there bearing gifts, and the gifts are sticks, samitas, to put into the sacrificial fire. And then you become part of his family, and he teaches you. And that's Gurukula. So, there are certain differences in the way things are done down through the ages and even today. But, to get back to the point, we don't know. We normally in South India still, the priests in all the major temples are Brahmin males. If there are some temples where they have non-Brahmin males, or even if they have females doing, it's okay as long as they're Vaishnavas. We understand from the Goswamis it's possible for that type of temple worship to be done. In the house, anybody can do the worship. Anybody can do the worship. But also in the house, if one's living in a patriarchal society, the father and husband will be considered to be the head of the household, like that. Maybe in modern society, we consider more equality between the spouses, and even the parents may ask the child to do I may ask my son or my daughter to do the worship, in the house, if I'm unable to do it or something. Or maybe they'll take it up maybe we'll take turns and we'll have a schedule like that. That's also possible. There's no restriction because we're Vaishnavas. If we're following Smarta Vidi, if we're following Shrauta Vidi, right, there may be some restrictions. But when we follow Vaishnava Vidi, when we follow Pancharatra, it's not a problem. Okay, so to get back to this particular set of slokas here that we have, which is coming from Skanda and Padma Puranas, right? It starts off talking a little bit about, and these are general instructions which are available in all Smriti Shastras. It talks about how, at what times and at what times in the month and what times of day. Then one is supposed to engage in sexual activity in as a grihastha. So he says the householder who enjoys sex with his wife only during the prescribed period of after menstruation, right? So in Sanskrit this is called ritu. The ladies have this period when they're considered to be contaminated, ritually impure, right? They're considered to be ritually impure during that time. So after that time, every month, then this is, of course, it's not applicable for premenstrual or postmenopausal women, but for the wife who is going through this ritu, this monthly contamination or period of uncleanliness, ritual impurity. It's ritual impurity. Then after that occurs, then we count certain numbers of nights, like 3 days after that, and then the ladies after that starts, then 3 days after that starts, then they take a full bath, because ladies don't usually take a full bath, including the hair, because the hair is long, or usually the hair is long. Maybe today they have short hair, but whatever it is, traditionally the ladies, they have long hair and they can't wash it every day. It takes too much time, and you catch a cold and so many things. So they take a full bath, which is called in India head bath in English, head bath, or shirsha shnana, right? So and this is also called ritu shnana. It's a special type of bath which comes at the end of that ritual impurity, that time of ritual impurity. So they take that bath and they take a complete bath, and after that, then so that's on the fourth night after the beginning of the ritual impurity. So then after the ritual impurity is over and the bath is over like that, then at that time, that is the time in the Smriti Shastras that talks about the beginning of the time when a person can have sex with his wife. And so there are different days of the month, different titis in the Smriti Shastra, which talks about Astami, Ekadasi, the parvans like the full moon and the new moon. There's some different nights which are supposed to be forbidden. And then also, if one wants to have children, then whether one wants to have a boy or a girl, there are different nights, odd nights for girls and even nights for boys that are supposed to be more auspicious for conceiving a child. Okay, so here it's talking about that the householder who enjoys sex with his wife only in the prescribed period after menstruation and is attached to his wife, right? Husband and wife are attached to each other in the sense, right? And no other woman, right? To the exclusion of others, right? Is to be considered a brahmachari. So there are different types of brahmacharis I wanted to take. In the scriptures, there's first of all, there's a type of brahmachari called brahmachari. What does it mean? Brahmachari actually means a person who has spiritual conduct, really. What it means is Brahma means God. Brahma in this sense doesn't mean Shatamukha Brahma, four-headed Brahma. It means Brahman. It means the supreme. The supreme. And achara means our activities, our behavior, right? So one has spiritual behavior. And it also means a person who is studying the scriptures, who is studying about the Lord, right? So the brahmachari is a student who is studying about the Lord. Now, many people, they'll translate brahmachari as celibate student, okay? And so that's also a meaning that the person, while he's studying, he's celibate. So there's different types of celibacy, right? So the first, number one type of celibacy is a person who is completely celibate their whole life. Completely celibate their whole life. That person is called a Naistika brahmachari. Naistika brahmachari. So that person is celibate throughout their life. They never pass semen. They never have sex. Are we talking about a male here? Like that. If a female is celibate throughout her life, then I guess she's called a brahmacharini or whatever it is. But normally, when we say brahmachari, we're talking about a celibate student. Okay. So a Naistika brahmachari is a person who's celibate throughout their life. Then you have another person who is celibate until he gets married. So he has the vow of studentship. And usually people in the fourth class, the Sudra class, they don't come into this category. They're not even eligible for this ashram of celibate ashram. So the other three ashrams, there are different stages of life. The Grihastha ashram is the one where one is allowed to have sex and procreate and conceive children and have this household life. Okay, the sannyasi, the vanaprastha, the brahmachari, they're supposed to be celibate. So the student starts out, he's celibate. He's a celibate student. And then at a certain point, he leaves the Gurukul. He will finish his course of study with the Guru, and he'll reward the Guru with Guru Dakshina, with gifts and with presents and with payment for teaching him. And then he will go and he will take a bath. So he's called a Shnataka. So more or less he's a bachelor at that point. He is not married yet, but he's finished his course of study. So that person then gets married. When he gets married, then according to in the Vedic marriage ceremony, in the Trivarnicus Vedic marriage ceremony, which is not done by the Shudras, but by the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, like that with Vedic mantras. Normally the idea is that there are 3 nights after this, which are there's a verse in the marriage ceremony that says about the lady who is getting married that Soma gave you to the Gandharva gave you to Agni, and Agni has given you to me for household duties, right? So it's understood that the lady throughout her life she's underneath the care and protection of different devatas until she gets married, and then she's being looked after by the husband. Yeah. So for those 3 nights, we talk about this. Soma, the Gandharva, and Agni. Okay. So what does it mean? What does it mean? It's not. Of course, you can take it literally, but the meaning is Soma. Soma is the moon god. So when a girl attains puberty, when she attains maturity, she begins this ritual, this period of monthly ritual impurity throughout her life. She begins to menstruate. So at that time, we say that the girl she's being affected by the moon. So that is the meaning in that mantra of you are under the protection of Soma. Soma was controlling you, right? So that's when the girls, when boys and girls attain puberty, they start thinking in different ways. They start thinking about sexuality and about gender, and so unless there's a very rare case where somebody doesn't think like that, but mostly we say this is puberty when people start to think about that. So the moon. So we say the girl is under the influence of the moon when she starts to menstruate, and then from the moon, then the Gandharva. The Gandharva means the angel, right? Means that she begins to have these sort of affectionate thoughts about members of the opposite sex, right? Right. So she's affected by the love of the angels, the Gandharvas, and then the third thing is give Agni, and Agni is there in the fire ceremony when she marries a husband. She is being given from the control of Agni. I mean, this is theoretical because actually her father is giving her away. Somebody else is giving the girl away in the Kanyadana, right? The girl is being given away by her parents or her family to the other boys, to the boys' family. And so she's leaving one family and entering another family. But the analogy is that the fire god is like passion. Fire is more than just affectionate thoughts. The older girls, they become even more passionate. They become more lusty, let's say. So that is considered to be like the fire. So Agni. So from the moon to the Gandharva to Agni, and then Agni has given you to me as a bride to perform household duties in the relationship of a grihasta couple. Okay, so this is said in the marriage ceremony like that. So because there are these three guardians of the girl, normally there are 3 nights after the marriage when the marriage is not consummated. There's no sex between the couple for 3 days afterwards, right? Similar to when during the marriage, every time there's the menstrual period, the monthly contamination period, there's a 3-day wait until sexual activity can occur again. So in the beginning of the marriage, so there'll be this, and sometimes they do this. They put a plank. They put a plank down. The married couple sleep on 2 sides of a board or a plank or something like that, and they don't consummate the marriage till the 4th day. That's why when we see the Vivaha Prayoga, in the Vivaha Prayoga, the 4th day is called Chaturthi Homa. Chaturthi Homa is more or less a Garbhadana Samskara. It's called Nishek also in Sanskrit. It means the first time that a married couple engage in sexual intercourse. So that happens on the 4th night. There are 3 nights for the moon, the Gandharva, and Agni afterwards, and then after that, she is given to the husband, and they can consummate the marriage. So that person who remains celibate for those 3 nights after the marriage, that's another type of brahmachari. So the first brahmachari is a Naistika brahmachari. The second brahmachari is that person who stays celibate for 3 nights after the marriage. I mean, some people don't stay celibate even after they get married. I mean, some people they up till marriage, right? They're celibate, but then immediately after they get married, they consummate the marriage. So, but according to the Vedic system, it should be 3 nights afterwards, and that means that person is also a type of brahmachari. There's a word for it. I don't remember the Sanskrit word for it. Then there's another person who only has sex at night. That's also mentioned in the Upanishads. There's a type of brahmachari who only has sex at night. So you can call yourself a brahmachari if you only have sex at night. If you don't have sex during the day or any other time, but only at night, you're a brahmachari, a type of brahmachari. It's a certain type of, so there's different levels of brahmachari, right? Like that. So here what he's talking about is this person is a grihasta, right? And he's only having sex with his wife and no other woman, and he is doing it at the particular time which is mentioned in the Dharma Shastras, right? And not on the Astami, and not on the Ekadasi, and not on the Parva days. There are these days, Parva days, not on the full moon and the new moon, etc., whatever it is. I think Chaturasi may also be. Anyway, so not on those days, or nights, we should say, right? Not in those nights. That person also is called a brahmachari. That person is also called a brahmachari. So that is called a grahastha brahmachari. He's a type of brahmachari. Okay? That's the full explanation of that first sentence. Okay, so there's a lot there. Okay, so let's continue on. The menstrual cycle, or the ritual impurity, of monthly ritual impurity, actually continues for 16 days. That's what he's saying here. And enjoying sexual intercourse during the first 4 days is condemnable. Right. So now, in the Smriti Shastras, it also says that each day you move on away from that period of contamination, that ritual impurity. Every night that you can hold off, there's a better and better and better time to conceive a child further along, further away from it. So here's saying the menstrual cycle actually continues for 16 days, and enjoying sexual intercourse during the first 4 days is condemnable. Okay, so this is interesting because the Goswamis here are giving a more strict interpretation to the Smriti Shastra prescriptions than is normally found in Manu and these places. Anyway, it's interesting. Okay, so thereafter, if one enjoys sex on an even day, meaning an even night, we're talking about night here, but the night itself is considered part of the day, a whole ratra, a day and night. But during the night, so on an even night, he will receive a son, and if he enjoys on an odd night, he'll receive a daughter. Okay, so that's typical in Dharma Shastras and Smriti Shastras. It says that. So if one can avoid an inauspicious phase of the moon, right? So there might be inauspicious phase of the moon. Normally, an inauspicious phase of the moon means, number one, the dark fortnight, or what we call Krishna Paksha, when the moon is waning, right? Which is the period from Purnima, full moon, up until Amavasya, which is the no moon period. So avoid that period, right? So there are some other inauspicious phases of the moon, right? There may also be different inauspicious stars, right? Which have to also be avoided, right? As well as the influence of Magha and Mula stars. Okay, so there are different nakshatras. There are 27 or 28 nakshatras. If we look at the zodiac, if we look around the ecliptic, right? If we look from the Earth, if we look at we take the Earth as being the center. So from a geocentric point of view, and we look out at the stars around the Earth, they're far away. But if we divide the Earth up into, if we look the view that we see directly overhead, if we divide it up into the 360 degrees around the Earth as the Earth turns, right, we will see different sections of the sky. So if we divide those up into, first of all, we divide them up into 12. Any astrologer knows this. You divide them up into 12 or to 12 rasis, or zodiac signs, right? From Aries around to Pisces, right? So then each those 360 degrees are also divided up into 27 stars. So what it means is that when that star is visible, when I look directly up in the sky, or let's say at the eastern horizon, and a star is appearing, coming up over the eastern horizon, right, in the distance, if that particular star or constellation is coming up, then that is the star or constellation which is ruling that day. At the time of the sunrise of the day, then that nakshatra. All we have to do is look at the Vedic calendar, the Panchangam, and we see what star is influencing what day. So when we know that Mula or Magha are the stars which are influencing that day, so that night is inauspicious for conceiving children. That's the point being made here. And also wait for the appearance of 10 auspicious stars altogether. He will be blessed with a son who will attain his goal of life. Okay, so there's a science in astrology, in Horashastra. There's a science called Muhurta, and I have a standard book on Muhurta is called Kala Prakashika. It deals with this science of Muhurta, or picking out the proper times to do anything. So a proper time to do a ritual for a fire ceremony, an installation, an initiation ceremony, or in this case, the proper time to conceive a child will be mentioned in there. It will be mentioned in there, and therefore one can consult that, and one can work out from the calendar and from, if necessary, by some computer program, you can work out exactly when the auspicious and inauspicious time is to do anything. Here we're talking about the time to conceive a child, and so that can also be figured out. So exactly, maybe we have to look at the Tika, at the purport here by Sanatan Goswami, and try to find out all the details of what the Goswamis considered to be the most auspicious time, or the least auspicious time, or a completely inauspicious time of the moon or the different stars, etc., or these 10 auspicious stars. And we find that out, and then we can make a prayoga, we can make a procedure to do when a person can consult the calendar when he's thinking about conceiving a child. Okay? So that's all it's saying here. It's just an aside. It really doesn't have to do with the main idea of Hari Bhakti Vilasa is we learn how to worship the Lord. But since we're talking about taking rest, and we're talking about the night like that, where if sexual activity occurs, it occurs at night normally. So that's why this part has been brought in. Okay. So if there are any questions about that, if there's more questions about it, we could go to the Dharma Shastras and we can look at all the different rules and regulations for that. Not a lot of people are concerned or follow these Dharma Shastric rules anymore, but I'm sure there are people there, and certainly for the Shudras, for most people who are workers in the working class, it's not of any importance whatsoever. So it's mainly for the Trivarnicus and those persons who are interested in, performing these different rituals and ritual form of conception in a proper Vaishnava way, according to these pramanas. Yeah. So let's continue on. Text 159 to 160 is a conversation between Ova and Sagara that are recorded in the Vishnu Purana. These verses are found. So in Vishnu Purana, we've got some more verses here. Okay, so after washing his hands and feet, a householder should have his evening meal and then sleep on an unbroken wooden cot. Okay. So exactly how the cot is constructed may be interesting. In North India, sometimes they have what's called a charpoi, which is a wooden frame, right? And then strung between the wooden frame are crisscrossed rope with big holes in it like that. And you just lie on it like a hammock, and it's very, very comfortable like that. Otherwise, some places they make a full wooden bench, and people lie down on that without any sort of mattress that we mostly use today. So here it says, one should avoid sleeping in a bed that is narrow, broken, uneven, old, or full of bugs. Okay, so I'm not quite sure how a wooden bed would be full of bugs unless they're termites, but if we have some sort of mattress on the bed, then that might have bugs in it. Yeah, so that's possible. So this is just talking about a person's bed, householder's bed, and how he should take rest on a bed like that. Some people, the typical system normally is people put out a mat or a cloth. They lay out a cloth like a chadar or something like that. They lay down on the chadar, and then they cover themselves with another chadar if need be. Most of India is very warm country, so sometimes people don't even. They just lay a mat down. They lay on top of the mat and go to sleep like that. It's very simple thing. So that's why we don't find it's mentioned all these different things about different types of beds and how they should be. We're not getting into all the different types of beds and bedding that can be used. Okay, so according to the climate, you will use more or less bedding, and this is how Vaishnavas usually sleep. So after washing hands and feet, and having the evening meal, and then take rest. So text 161. It's recommended that one should sleep while keeping his head to the east or south. Okay, that's very interesting because south here is called yam, to the south, right? Pracham dishi means to the east, right? And yama means to the south. Yama is the south. So Yamaraj or Yama, the god of death, is considered, the god of rules is considered to be in the south. So normally south is not considered to be an auspicious direction. So here we have that people should sleep with their heads to the east. That's understandable because that's the number one first auspicious direction because the sun comes up in the east. But the south is a little bewildering why you should have your head to the south. Maybe you should not have your feet to the south so you don't offend Yamaraj. I don't know. I'm not sure about this. There may be some other recommendations in other sampradayas and in other Dharma Shastras. So I wouldn't take this necessarily as being everybody agrees with this, that you should put your head to the south. Normally, east, north are the better directions to have your head facing. But this can also change in Dharma Shastras because it's in the night. So
have
just like we have the Sanya Vandanam. In the Sanya Vandanam in the morning and noon, we face east and do the japa of Gayatri in the west, actually, in the evening, because that's where the sun is. So, but I'm not quite sure exactly why he says the south here. O king, one who does not take this good advice and sleeps with his head to the west or the north will become diseased. Okay, so there's your pramana from Hari Bhakti Vilasa, Gaudiya Vaishnavas for them. East and south facing for sleeping, and west and north is not advised. Okay, so that's the pramana for Gaudiya Vaishnavas. I don't know what it is for.
Quoting any other shastra, do we have the source? Which shastra is this? Vishnu Purana.
Well, he's saying Vishnu Purana. Maybe it's also included in Vishnu Purana. If you want me to look it up, I'll look it up and see if it's actually there. Because it's a long time since I discussed this topic, but my recollection was east, of course, is good. But the second direction, would be north for me. But it can also be noted. I want to note another thing, that people who live in the Agraharam, they live just around a temple, or even if you have a deity room in your house, you can consider the direction that the deity faces as east. So you may want to sleep in a house, or you may want to sleep in a neighborhood, not putting your feet in the direction of where the temple is in a neighborhood, or in your house, you may not want to put your feet facing the direction where the deity of the house is. This is very similar to when you go into the temple. When we go into the temple, even if the deity is closed, we don't lay down in the temple with our feet facing the altar room or facing the Vyasa. See, now this is one problem I have with Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan in ISKCON. Okay, so in the Krishna Balaram temple in Vrindavan, if you walk in from the left side of the temple, right up near the altar, there's a door, and this is the door that Prabhupada used to come in when he'd come from his house to the temple. He would come in there for morning darshan. Then they put the Vyasasan, they put the asana for him, and for Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasan is on the very left. As you face the altar on the very left hand side, Prabhupada is facing the right hand side, and the three altars are there. So then, if we come into the temple, right? If the deities are open, we have to offer our obeisances to the deities. So during the deity darshan, or even at Mangalarti, people will stand. They will stand and they will offer with their left side to the deity. They will pay obeisances flat out on the floor with their left side to the deity of Gaunitai, to the deity of Krishna Balam, to the deity of Radha Shamasundar, like that 3 times, their feet will be facing the Guru. Their feet will be facing the Guru. If you offer your head towards the deities, your left side is facing the Guru, which is also okay, right? But its usual prescription in the Shastra is that the left side should be facing Vishnu, right side should be facing Shiva, head on for the Guru. So if you went into Krishna Balam and you said, okay, head on, I should face on, I should pay my obeisances to the Guru. So you pay obeisances with your head to the Guru, okay, then your right side is to the deities. So that's okay if you're in a Shiva temple, but in a Vishnu temple, your left side should be. So in my opinion, somebody should have consulted the scriptures and they should have put Prabhupada's Vyasasana on the other side, on the right-hand side of that temple. And then the right-hand side of all ISKCON temples, they should put the right-hand side. And that way, when people are paying their obeisances to the deities, they can pay with their head towards the Guru and their left side towards Vishnu. That's correct. That would be the correct Shastric way to do it. So these are all considerations that people should know about when planning a house and a deity room in a house, or planning how they're going to sleep in a bedroom when they live in a neighborhood where there's a temple, or when they're building a temple and they're wanting to put an altar for the Guru and an altar for the Lord. If we go, for instance, in a temple like Melkote, Melkote is a very ancient temple. It's a very ancient temple. You walk in and you see the deity straight on, right? And on the left-hand side is Ramanujas. Ramanujas is the Guru, and Ramanujas there. He has his altar, his deity room is on the side, on the right-hand side, right? So if I were to pay obeisances head on to Ramanuja, my left side would be to the deity. That is the way to do it. That's according to Shastra. Okay, so I don't know if anybody out there is planning ISKCON temples or planning to build temples, but they should take note of these sort of things before you build the temple. And building the temple will be discussed in the very last chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, in the 20th Vilasa, and we'll get there. And I'm not sure whether this subject is brought up there, but because it's brought up here about how to sleep, we should mention it. We should just mention that different directions have different mentions in the scripture. Okay, so continue on. 162, text 162. We're getting some more information about sexual activity of grihastas. O king, one should enjoy sex with his wife, avoiding the first 5 days of her menstrual period. Okay. Thereafter, one may have sexual intercourse on even days up to the 16th night. The even nights are said to be auspicious. Okay, that's because normally there's a preference for begetting male children in this patriarchal society. But anyhow, so this is a little bit at odds with the discussion that we had before, right? This other pramana here that we got from, now where is this other one from? From Skanda and Padma, Skanda and Padma, no. From the Vishnu Purana, it says here, where did it say about 16 days were not considered inauspicious? Yeah, so this is supposed to be from Vishnu Purana. We'll have to, Skanda and Padma Purana. Okay, so that says that actually the first 16 days, the 16 days are considered, they're all considered inauspicious. But down here, we have another statement here saying that the sexual intercourse should only occur up to the 16th night. So if they're all considered inauspicious, that's contradictory, right? But it is saying that the even nights are considered to be auspicious. But that doesn't take into consideration. This is all supposed to be from the same. This is from Vishnu Purana. Okay, so the first prescription is from Padma and Skanda Puranas, and this is from Vishnu Purana. So Vishnu Purana is saying that. I more agree with Vishnu Purana here. Anyway, and so then text 163. One should never enjoy sex during the first 4 nights of his wife's menstrual period. when she's sick, while menstruation is still in progress, when she's angry, or when she is in a mature state of pregnancy. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward. Text 164. One should not enjoy sex with a low-born woman, right? Well, if your wife's a low-born woman, then what alternative do you have? That's pretty strange. What it's talking about here is a low-born woman, like a prostitute or one in a lower class or caste than you're in, right? Now, if we read Manu Samhita, we do read that there are different types of marriages, that they're called anuloma and pratiloma. So normally the Shastras recommend the marriage between equal partners of different classes. So first class, a Brahmin marries a lady Brahmin, a Kshatriya marries a lady Kshatriya, a Vaishya marries a lady Vaishya, and a Sudra marries a lady Shudra, like that, Shudrani. However, if a higher class man marries a lower class woman, that is called anuloma. If a higher class woman marries a lower class man, that is called pratiloma. So anuloma marriages are usually accepted in the Dharma Shastras and Smriti Shastras, but the progeny is a mixed class, right, and is not considered pure, right? This is what we call Varna Shankara. Varna Shankara means a mixture of castes, which was talked about by Arjuna. Actually, Arjuna gave this as an excuse not to fight to Lord Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. There'll be mixing of classes. There'll be mixture of classes, and there'll be unwanted progeny of these mixed caste people who are born from these combinations of different classes will be unwanted. Okay, in society, and unwanted even maybe by their parents. Okay, so they're considered lower class, right? The anuloma and the pratiloma, specifically the pratiloma, where the lady is of a higher class and the husband is of a lower class. They are considered lower than the anuloma versions. And you can read all about this if you read in the 10th chapter of Manusmriti, like that. But this is all mostly according to the Smarta Varnashram system, which is according to caste by birth, like that. For Vaishnavas, if we're following Daivi Varnashram, if we're understanding the class of a person by their qualities and by their activities, by their spiritual advancement, then, and if we're even Vaishnavas, we're less concerned with this sort of stuff than people who are smartas. Okay, because smartas usually they follow the Shmiti Shastras. That's what smarta means. Somebody who's very attached to following the rules and regulations to the letter of the Shmiti Shastras. Okay. So here's it. Okay, one should not enjoy sex with a low-born woman, with a woman who desires someone else. Okay, so the idea is that the husband should not be desiring another woman, the wife should not be desiring another husband. So, or with one who is unwilling, right? So this counts rape out and all this sort of things, right? Hungry, so the lady should not be hungry, right? Or who has eaten too much. Right, so overeating, right? Or with another man's wife. The same rule applies to a woman as well. So from the man's point of view, from the woman's point of view, these are the rules. Okay, so text 165. After bathing and decorating himself with sandalwood paste and a flower garden, a lusty person who is not too excited and not afflicted by hunger should enjoy sex with his wife. Okay, so here's a prescription, right? So taking into consideration the time and the place and the circumstance, right? How should it be done? How should the consummation of a Grihasta's relationship with his wife be done? Like that. After bathing, he should bathe. He should decorate himself with sandalwood paste and a flower garland, like that. She can also, like that. And lusty person who should not be too excited, right? And not afflicted by any hunger. You know, he should just be, but also not overfed, and he should enjoy the sex with his wife. That's, yeah. Okay. All right. So let's continue on. 166 to 168. Again, all of this section here is a side section because Hari Bhakti Vilasa is mostly meant for Grihastas, so it just mentions some things for Grihastas which are not necessary, which are not important for the other ashrams, not important for sannyasis, brahmacharis, and vanaprasthas. So that's not. So any brahmacharis, sannyasis, and vanaprasthas out there, you can just turn off, and you don't need to worry about this section like that. This is for Grihastas. Okay, so because mostly Hari Bhakti Vilasa is written for Grihastas. Oh, foremost of kings, hear now about those persons who reside in hell, where they will have to eat stool and drink urine. Okay, so there's a particular hell where you have to eat stool and drink urine. And how do you go there? Those men and women who enjoy sexual intercourse eat meat and apply oil to their bodies on the 14th, 8th, and new moon and full moon day. So these 4 days, these 4 days are considered parvas. These are called the parva days. The Astami, the Chaturthi, the Amavasya, and the Purnima. These are forbidden days, right? So what are you forbidden to do on these days? You're forbidden to have sex on these nights. You're forbidden to eat meat on these days, and you're forbidden to apply oil to your body, which means taking an oil bath. Usually people don't take an oil bath every day. On certain occasions, we take a ritual bath with oil. We put oil on the body, and then the soap later on, we clean. It's a deep cleansing to get out pores, dirt that's lodged in the skin, and it helps to clean the skin and to make the skin supple and it's good. So okay, so that should not be done on those days. 8th day, Astami, Chaturdasi, new moon and full moon. Okay, so the reason before I also mentioned Ekadasi. Now we're going to be talking about Ekadasi later on, and Ekadasi actually is 3 nights, right? There's a vow for 3 nights. There's Dasami, Ekadasi, and Dwadasi. So for Vaishnavas, we can also add the days of the Ekadasi Vratam. If we're performing Ekadasi Vratam, obviously, when you're doing a Vratam, you're not going to have sex while you're doing a Vratam, right? So just take it for understood that there are certain regular general rules for days that you shouldn't do certain things, including having sex, right? Here it includes eating meat and applying oil bath. But there are also specific days. These are in the Smriti Shastras, but there are specific Vaishnava days where you'll be performing a particular vrata or vow like Kadasi or Dwadasi, different vows, right? Or Janmastami or whatever it is like that. Those particular days, we'll be too busy. We'll be doing specific vows of worshiping the Lord in a specific way, right? And therefore, these things will be inappropriate, like sexual intercourse and eating meat and applying and doing oil bath. Then again, there might be some rituals where we do have to do the oil bath, right? When we do the oil bath, when, for instance, at Kartik is coming up, so what is it? Deepawali time day, we do a very deep cleanse bath for Diwali day. Okay, so here we have that. Now it's interesting that it says eating meat here. That means some people do eat meat, right? If there's a rule in the scripture that says you shouldn't eat meat on this day, what does it mean? It means that rule is meant for people who actually eat meat on other days. So it's an interesting quote. Where does it come from again? Let's have a look. Not exactly sure. Maybe it's from Vishnu Purana. Maybe we're continuing from Vishnu Purana. I don't know. We'll have to look this up too. All of these are quite interesting. Okay, so anyway, but if you do those things, you'll end up in hell eating stool and urine. Okay, so that's the point being mentioned here. Now, okay, and on days when the sun enters into a new zodiac sign. Right, so this in the calendar. This is called the Sankranti. Sankranti is when the sun. It happens around the middle of the English calendar month, the modern Western calendar month. So like around the 14th, 15th, or 16th of the month is when the sun will go from one house of the zodiac to another. Okay, that's called Sankranti. For instance, Makara Sankranti is January 14th or January 15th every day. It's Capricorn, when the sun goes into Capricorn. Okay, so that's the beginning of Uttarayana, the northern course of the sun, and it's the end of Dakshinayana, the beginning of auspicious rituals for the year. Okay, so a person who enjoys sex with a cow, a horse, or any other animal, and who enjoys sex and then takes medication to terminate the pregnancy, as well as one who enjoys sex with his wife in a temple, at the house of a Brahmin, or at the house of his spiritual master, loses his qualification to be called a member of one of the 4 ashramas. Okay, so there are certain rules in the Shmiti Shastra that says if you break this rule, it's considered a sin in the sense that you will lose your class, you lose your class, or you lose your ashram. You'll lose your standing in society, in a particular part of society. Okay, so that's pretty clear. That's pretty clear. Any of those things you do, you lose your caste, and here it says you lose your ashram. So 169 to 170. Let's just continue on. Let's see if we can get past this particular section. A learned person should not enjoy sex under a sacred tree, in a sacrificial arena, yagashala, right? In a holy place, So that's interesting. So, I mean, the holy place could mean a lot of things, because, even your house, even a Grihasta's house, is a holy place in a sense, because it contains the deities of the Lord in the deity room, right? Okay, so in a pasturing ground where the cows, pasture, right? They go to eat. At an intersection, I don't know why you would, but anyway, an intersection, in a crematorium, in a garden, in the water, during 5 kinds of celebrations. I'm not sure what the 5 types of celebrations are. Let's see in the Sanskrit here, 5 types of celebrations. Not sure what 5 types of celebrations are. At dawn, at dusk, or when he's afflicted by the urge to pass stool and urine. Okay, so this is all just practical stuff. These are all rules. Okay, so texts 171 to 173. What to speak of enjoying sex with another man's wife, one should never even think about it. Those who run away from another man's wife will be reborn. Those who run away with another man's wife, will be born as a boneless worm. A person who enjoys sex with another man's wife will go to hell after death, and even while living, he will diminish his duration of life. Enjoying another man's wife is harmful to both for both this life and the next. Considering this fact carefully, a wise person should only enjoy sex with his wife after 4 days of her menstrual period. So 4 or 5 days. We saw also 5 days was mentioned there before. Everyone should follow these regulations for their own benefit. Text 174. Although this subject is not applicable to the renounced devotees, meaning the brahmacharis, the varanprasthas, and the sannyasis, right, of the Lord, we have described them for the benefit of householders. So this is specifically, that section was for the benefit of householders. Okay, so let's continue on. Text 175. One who remains engaged in the worship of Lord Krishna beginning in the early morning till late at night achieves all perfection, because the Supreme Lord is very pleased with him. So we come to another section here, which is the glories of worshiping the Supreme Lord. So what I think is we finished that particular section, which was all about activities of putting the Lord to bed, and then taking our evening meal and taking rest ourselves, and then also some different rules and regulations from the Shmiti Shastras and different Puranas about the times and circumstances under which a Grihastha can enjoy sex with his wife. So we finished all that off, and it was noted that those details were only useful for people who are Grihasthas, and not for Vanaprasthas, Brahmacharis, and Sannyasis.